Weaver reporting for Infowars.com. I'm here in downtown Colorado Springs, and recently we've had many news agencies, as well as the President, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the EU, and all these other globalists calling for a censorship or a ban on any news agencies that they deem as fake news.
Everybody's talking about fake news. Have you been hearing about this lately, the fake news? You have to be careful, though. You really do. Before you share a story that you see online, make sure it's from a trustworthy source, like me.
Fake news played a role in this election and continues to find a wide audience.
And what are the 5 most egregious fake news stories of 2016?
Fake news is a term that was used about 500 times before the election actually took place.
You've been talking a lot about fake news during the election, after the election, especially with Donald Trump.
From election day afterward, it's been used more than 3,000 times.
Who is peddling this fake news? Even President-elect Donald Trump has been known to peddle some conspiracy theories.
It's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences.
And this is a fake story, but it ended up with a real gunshot. Things like this are going to keep happening as we deal with this plague of fake news.
Let's go ahead and ask some of these people here what news agencies or news outlets they tune into and what ones that they would deem as fake news and what they think about censoring our First Amendment. Let's go ahead and see what the people on the street have to say. What news outlet do you watch?
I try to watch all of them because I know a lot of them have their own opinions on certain things. I watch Fox, I watch CNN, I watch NBC, you know, CBS, things like that.
Fox News, local news, ABC, NBC.
I actually don't have cable right now, so I don't really watch. I'm on Google, online.
Do you tune into any online news outlets?
Yeah, through MSN.
I read all online news.
News 5, basically.
Do you watch any other mainstream like CNN or ABC or
Honestly,
NBC?
I'm a true Coloradan. I don't watch much TV at all. I read books.
I hate to say it, I watch ABC, NBC, CBS, and CNN.
NPR?
Many on the left that the speech they disagree with on the internet, which they're calling now fake news, ought to be actively suppressed by the authorities.
Bipartisan legislation is making its way through Congress to boost the government's response to fake news.
I think it's up to the rest of us, most people, most Americans who know this stuff is nonsense, to say so and to refuse to be confused by it.
Not just to ignore it. Then it matters who is peddling these conspiracy theories.
What have you heard about a ban on news outlets that they deem as fake news?
I can't honestly say I've heard much about it.
I think it's a good idea, but it's probably really difficult to track down which is fake and real. But usually you can tell by websites and website addresses of what's real and what's fake.
Do you think it should be left up to the discretion of the viewer?
I think so, but I think more people should be made aware of what's possibly fake and what to look for.
I've heard of fake news, and I haven't directly heard about the ban on fake news, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear that.
I think that's a good idea because nobody wants to be told false information. It's basically like being lied to, and we all want to know the truth and want to know what's going on in our United States. And
I think it'd be interesting to ban them, but I don't know how else you could regulate that or monitor it, or if people were aware and knew how to, or trusted sources.
Everyone should have guidelines and follow them because we need to hear information. We shouldn't hear false information, though.
Brian Williams will not be returning to the anchor chair at NBC Nightly News. The anchorman was suspended in February for 6 months for exaggerating stories about his experiences in a war zone. An internal investigation by NBC reportedly found 10 to 12 additional instances of exaggerating.
I made a mistake in describing it.
She claimed she misspoke last week and was sleep-deprived when she described landing under sniper fire in Tuzla, Bosnia, something that didn't happen.
The most one-sided, dishonest offender of this media bias is CNN. If you're the New York Times, if you're Politico, and you're allowing only Clinton to edit a piece you're writing about her before it goes out and not doing the same for the other candidate, you're fake news.
The New York Times, which is chief among those outlets decrying fake news, maybe has engaged in a little bit of it, and you've got pages of examples. I urge our viewers to read this.
The Washington Post, published this article as this bombshell story to expose fake news, but it appears in this case the Washington Post ended up generating fake news.
What sites have you heard of being called fake news?
Everybody's calling each other fake news. All sites are calling each other fake news. Both sides.
Do you have any news sites that you think are fake news?
Yes. CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC I'm still kind of iffy about. That's why it's important not to only look at one station. You need to look at all of them.
I know YouTube has a lot of fake stuff on it. I don't know a lot of actual fake news really.
What if the opinion were that NBC, CNN, ABC, that those were the fake news outlets?
It'd shock everyone, but I don't trust everything I hear. I have to see basically a lot of it.
What if somebody all of a sudden were calling NPR fake news? What would your opinion on it be?
Well, you would have to assume that NPR and New York Times have people that fact check and have the resources. They can't just lie and make up anything. So they have staff members that work there.
Is it because you've caught them or you've seen them engaging in false stories or trickery?
Well, one of the major things was what happened in Columbine. If you watched one, they told you so many people had died, you changed the station and watch another one and they're like, no, this is how many. Everyone was reporting something completely different. And it happens all the time.
Google announcing overnight it will prevent websites that push phony news from using its AdSense advertising network, and Facebook announcing that it is updating policies to ban fake news. Those are important steps, Robin.
Very important. But I have to say it's a little weird to hear journalists arguing for the suppression of views, even if they believe them to be wrong, or even if they can prove they're wrong.
Do you think that this infringes on the First Amendment?
Absolutely.
So you would say that definitely this is an infringement and wrong?
Yeah, to say any news outlets can't report what they want to report is definitely an infringement on the First Amendment.
I think that would interfere with the tenet of freedom of the press immensely. So yeah.
So you don't agree with it then, right?
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't think banning, anyone from, giving their opinion or saying what is news or not news. I don't think that's a good idea.
It would be wrong to do that, but I don't know how else to do it, and it would be more of on the consumer side of things.
I think it would help a lot because, it would help other people that actually have the truth and real news out there, help them get their word out more rather than people wasting their time watching all this other fake stuff that, doesn't, it's not true.
Well, right now we have either sides, both different sides of all different news outlets are pointing the finger at each other being fake news. Wouldn't that kind of cross-cancel all of them out?
Yeah, well, I guess everybody's going to go with what they love the most, and hopefully somebody in higher power can cross the fake news out themselves because people are always going to watch what they want.
Do you think that that Hitler would have most likely banned and deemed any news agencies fake news that were putting out news and articles saying that, the Jews are just people like me and you?
Yep, he would have done that.
So do you think it's any bit different what we're seeing now, where we have Obama and Hillary pointing the finger at news outlets that are criticizing them as fake news?
I think even Trump, I think that anyone that points the finger at wrong news is very unethical. We shouldn't infringe on the First Amendment. That's what made our nation great, because we got the freedom of speech. Because I served in the military at one point in time, I was in the Persian Gulf War. Those guys don't have the freedoms we have. But we take our freedoms for granted. But as a nation, if we didn't I wish we would focus on realizing we have a free nation and not take our stuff for granted.
There's been a precedent set
and it's been set for quite a good long while, and we need to start remembering what that is. And it's that we're all entitled to one thing, and that's to be a mindful consumer of information. You deserve better, and America is going to get better whenever you start listening and watching, and that's what we're going to do. And my opinion on fake news is that it's not going to happen anymore because we're going to start actually listening and looking at things dialectically.
So it appears that the American people have opposing opinions as to what news outlets can be deemed as fake. So if we were to go off of Americans' opinions, then we would end up with no news because we just ban any different news outlets that people thought were fake news. This is exactly why we have the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, freedom of the press in our Constitution is to protect these things. This is Millie Weaver signing off for Infowars.com.